walking in a country road, and I've been chasing after my shadow.
Welcome back to the Camino Podcast, episode 96. I'm Dave Whitson.
Nobody asked me my name.
All right, I'm back in the Pacific Northwest for a little while, at least. Since we last spoke, I spent 3 months walking across Italy, from Puglia in the south to the Slovenian border in the north. More on that to come in some of the episodes ahead. I also made my second trip on the Kumano-Kodo in Japan with a great group of high schoolers. And in between, in the narrowest of windows, I managed to make a cameo appearance at the 2025 Gathering of Pilgrims in Vancouver, BC, which brought together the American Pilgrims and Canadian Company of Pilgrims, USA and Canada coming together, at least in one way. The event ran for 4 days, but unfortunately I could only make it for part of one, with 6 hours of driving each way on either side of that visit. But hey, when you have a chance to catch a Rebekah Scott, Lori Dennett doubleheader, you make that drive every time. This was my second year in a row attending the gathering, and it further reinforced A, what a special event it is, and B, what a shame it is that part of what makes it so special, its relatively modest size with just a few hundred pilgrims attending, also makes it so exclusive. I know there were a lot of people hoping to attend this year who couldn't make it, and that's a great problem for those organizers to have, needing to find ways to satisfyingly meet the growing demand that exists for different forms of bringing the Camino home with us. But it's also a bummer if you're on the outside looking in. One of the cool things about having a podcast, though, is that it provides me with a microphone, a way of passing information along to a wider audience, and also preserving it for the long haul. And even among those in attendance at the gathering, there was a strong appetite to capture Rebekah Scott's keynote presentation, titled Wisdom of the Elders, A Bridge We Cross Together, for future reference. She was kind enough to agree to reprise her speech in this episode, and endured my periodic interruptions, while also battling through a sore throat. So in this episode, you'll hear Rebekah share the insights she has gleaned across her 3+ decades walking, serving, and living on the Camino, from the many pilgrims who have preceded her, and also those who continue to maintain the traditions of the way, conveniently distilled down to 10 lessons, or commandments, if you will, to carry forward. Thanks for bearing with me over another long break. It's good to be back with you. Rebekah Scott is the author of A Furnace Full of God, A Holy Year on the Camino de Santiago, and The Moorish Whore. She's also the force behind Peaceable Projects, and she lives at the Peaceable Kingdom in Moratinos, Spain. You can find her online at peaceableprojects.org. Rebekah Scott, thank you very much for talking with me again. I think this is the third time now. How is Moratinos as we sit here today on the cusp of summer?
Oh, well, Moratinos is hotter than July right now. The pilgrim numbers have dropped down a little bit because that's what happens this time of year. The harvest is starting to happen. There's a beautiful harvest of grain going on. There's no late frosts and a lot of rain in the spring, so things are looking good farm-wise. Lots of tractors around. So if you're walking on the Camino with your ear things in, if you get run over, it's not anybody else's fault.
You are home from a long trip to Canada. What was that experience like as you traveled to this major gathering of American and Canadian pilgrims in Vancouver, BC?
Well, it was huge. I knew it was coming a couple of years before. They asked me to come and talk. And they said, you want to talk in Texas or you want to talk in Vancouver? And I said, yeah, sure, I want to talk in Vancouver. So I had a couple of years to write this thing. And I wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. It was evolutionary. What I ended up with, I still was not very happy with at the end, but I looked forward to it a lot. This was a big landmark kind of for me. I had not been to a gathering like this for a long time and nothing international, but it meant a lot to me because I work very closely with the Canadian Company of Pilgrims as well as the American Pilgrims. It was at the first joint gathering in Toronto that I really got my launch onto the Camino and being part of the scene.
Hmm.
I met some very important people who've become best friends and, good co-workers and buds over the years. And so this was like full circle. It was a little bit of a swan song for me. I'm backing off on a lot of Camino stuff right now, and this gave me a nice pulpit to stand up and preach from. So it checked a lot of boxes for me, I guess you could say.
And the title of the sermon was The Wisdom of the Elders.
Yeah.
What inspired you to focus on that angle out of all the possible things that you could talk about?
The theme of the conference was crossing bridges or something kind of vague like that. I wanted to focus on what the Camino really means and the old school way to make a pilgrim. We're not making this stuff up. We got this from 1,000 years of experience. And I wanted to share my experience as seen and as echoed by the people who gave this to us. And this gives it a little bit more street cred, I guess. It's not something we made up in the last 30, 40 years. This is stuff that people have been doing for more than 1,000. And so we have a lot to learn from our elders. And we didn't just invent this ourselves. And it's not about us at all. We have this great heritage we can draw from. And I'm a historian too, so I have a lot of respect for the past and old wisdom.
It's an interesting tension that often exists in Camino discourse today that, the year before I talked about kind of the My Camino phenomenon and this idea that it shouldn't be prescriptive. You shouldn't be telling people what to do. Everyone gets to walk their own Camino. So it's sort of the individualistic bent. And obviously there's plenty of room for people to find what is relevant to them on the Camino. But still, there's a lot of value as well in those experiences of the past to draw upon that wisdom that you wanted to feature in this conversation.
Exactly, because we can go off on a deep end that way too. And it all becomes very relativistic and very woo-woo and loses a lot of its teeth and a lot of its real, historic value, which means a lot because so much of what we have here, even physically on the trail, geographically, architecturally, artistically, we have 500 years of elders' wisdom. So it's not what everybody brings to it. It's what we have here already. This path was here long before we were and has a lot to teach us. We didn't come here fully loaded with all the wisdom of the world to share with the Camino. The Camino came here loaded to share its wisdom with you. So you need to empty all that out of your head and let it be what it is. That's my opinion.
If we already knew what we want, knew what we needed, knew exactly how to do it, we probably wouldn't even need to make the walk in the first place.
No, no. We've already read the books and read all the websites and watched all of the live cameras. What's there left to do,
Yeah.
So let the Camino be what it is. Don't overdo it. Don't overstudy it. I couched my speech in saying that the Camino has a lot of great opportunities for people who want to have a nice holiday and a
Mhm.
nice cultural holiday and stay in nice places and walk in nice environments and be with fun people and have nice dinners. And that's cool. There's room for that. But I'm talking about old school pilgrimage and doing it as a spiritual discipline. This is what I'm talking about. Those guys, fine. You guys have a great time. We're talking about us here. So maybe it is a little bit us and them, but well, that's me. I'll own that.
So the centerpiece of the talk, it was funny being in the room because you could just immediately see people scrambling for their journals to start writing things down as we got to this point. What very tongue in cheek became referred to as the 10 commandments that you were offering. The room got the joke. The internet doesn't always have a sense of humor, so to be clear, I don't think these are intended as commandments, right? But pieces of advice from the elders.
Well, yeah, we call them that because it's simple and everybody knows what 10 Commandments are. I mean, I'm not coming off of Mount Horeb with two stone tablets to bash you over the head with. But well, you can learn a lot from the 10 Commandments. If you follow the 10 Commandments, you'll live a pretty good life. So, and it makes a framework that everybody can understand. When I first was, thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that, and kind of fun, but and I softened it up a little bit. They're not always declarative like the commandments are. And I kind of wandered around within that format. So it wasn't always cohesive or coherent the way I like to make speeches, but it is what it is. And I was very pleased that people still got it because I got a little discursive in there and I was afraid I might lose the flow, but it worked out well. I'm very happy.
It worked out so well that one of the most common things that people were bringing up immediately after the presentation was, how can we get this list? When is it going to be available? And I was wondering about that too. And then it finally occurred to me that, you know what, maybe we could make it available this way. So I appreciate you making the time to do it. So let's jump into it. I want to run down these 10 commandments with you. So what's the first one?
Well, let me tell you, it's going to be published in all of the newsletters for all the national groups too. So,
Fantastic.
uh,
Even better.
but anyway, the first one is the Camino is holy. It's a holy place. It's to be respected. And we need to walk it with respect and treat it with respect and know that you're walking in holy ground and it's going to make you holy too, like it or not. It has an effect on you. So that's the first one. You need to respect the place. It's not Disneyland. It's not a place that you came here for vacation. It's holy to many people, and it's a holy site to people like me. I feel a little defensive about it. I see you throwing your trash on the ground. I will pick it up and hand it back to you because this is not a place to be trashed. There are a lot of people like me out there, so watch out.
Is there a line like, you can obviously see people who are having a great deal of fun and having plenty of drinks in the evening, gathering around at the bar, people who are listening to music while they walk, people who are recording videos of themselves talking on the trail, like all of these different things. Is there a clear line in your mind when sort of respecting the holiness of the place crosses over, or is it less tangible to you what that means in practice?
Well, I get more into that in a little later down the.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the holiness is you respect other people and you also respect the people around you. Also, the fact that the Camino is a physical place, it's 500 kilometers or however many kilometers, but it commands respect in a way that you need to walk it all, walk it front to back if you can. It is a thing that formed itself this way for a reason. It's a long distance trail. It's meant to be walked long. Breaking it apart doesn't really work because continuity is so important to this journey. It's meant to be long because the longer you walk, the greater benefit you get from it. You walk it with the same people, more or less, and you get benefit from them, and they benefit from you. You become this sort of formula. You work off of each other, and you become holy together. You embrace your holiness, and then you start to feel and see the wonders around you. But only if you take your time and you let it develop in its own time and over the miles. It's not a short little thing. The longer you spend with it, the better you get it. So you start way back in France, lucky you. And I know that there's many people who are handicapped in one way or another, time-wise or physically wise. No can do. Do what you can. But if you have the privilege, give it the space it needs that our elders walked from home, hundreds and thousands of miles. And they had to walk back home afterward, which is a whole nother concept. But they got the full meal deal. We cut ourselves in half because we'd get on a plane and go home. I think that's why we have these crises at the end, because we don't get a whole other trip home to process it all. So this is another thing that we need to respect the Camino for what it is. 500, 700 kilometers. Yeah, it's long and it should be long. It should be. You lose control of your time. You lose control of your environment. This is where the magic, I don't like that word, but this is where it starts to happen when you let go and you let the Camino start to roll with you. You don't have to make a reservation every night. You don't have to know exactly where you're going to eat or what tourist attraction you've got to see. You can lollygag. You can lay back. You can spend an extra day. And hanging out with your friends at the bar is a holy thing too. It's important. That's where all kinds of light gets in that way. I'm not a Puritan.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had a glass of wine with lunch, no biggie.
How could you not? Was that all the first commandment, or did that bleed into the
Well, no,
second? You're jumping around.
The second kind of dovetails in with what it's saying. You can lollygag, you can go slow, listen to your body, stop when you feel tired, enjoy the food and drink, but don't overdo it. Don't get smashed and make a fool of yourself all night in the bathroom and make a mess. This is a path of austerity, and it's about self-control. It's not a big rolling party. Sometimes it's great to have some fun, but be respectful of the people around you. Respect your body. Respect your limits. Leave behind that identity that you brought from home. That's one of the great freedoms of the Camino, about going slow. You don't have to be the CEO or the guy in charge or the big influencer or whoever you are at home. You can just be you. You won't know these people after this, so you're set free. You're just a pilgrim. You're not entitled to anything, which is real scary for some people. You don't expect anything. And you're one of a whole lot of other people on the road. And you're living real low to the ground on the rocks and the dirts and the pots and the pans, and you don't have to prove anything to anybody. You go nice and slow and you don't miss anything. And you don't worry about where you're going to sleep because there's always a place for you. This is the glory of it. Anyway, here I am getting ahead of myself again.
I mean, the power of the wisdom is that it fits together, right? That
It does. It's all dovetails. Yeah.
what do you think about? So one of the things that I've thought about in recent years is how I think when I started walking, it was quite customary for pilgrims to go about 25 kilometers a day, in part due to necessity. There weren't as many albergues or refugios, and so you had to go further sometimes. And I think for me, and certainly as a younger man walking, I saw the value in having longer days where I was stretched physically, and that was valuable to me as part of the Camino process. And I sometimes wonder if the trend towards shorter days, going slow, removes part of the physicality from it. Is that valid? Does that conflict at all with the idea of going slow, or do you see those being able to coexist?
No, they totally coexist. You go slow, you can cover a lot of miles going slow.
That's true.
And then also what you're talking about is when you're learning your limits.
Hmm.
Before I walked my first Camino, I had no idea what I was physically capable of. I mean, I'd been athletic most of my youth, but I never pushed myself the way I pushed myself on the Camino. And I pushed myself too hard a few times and found out. But this is where you find what your limits are, and you find how incredibly strong you are, and how flexible you are, and how you can sleep anywhere if you're tired enough. So it's really another lesson of the Camino. You can go those extra 5 if you can't find a bed. You can do this, or you can't, or you can get that cab and overcome your own, onus about asking for help. So
Mm.
there's all these different ways to learn, and also to justify your sins too.
All right. Third commandment.
The third commandment also dovetails with the first two, is be quiet, be alone, spend time with yourself. Don't surround yourself with people constantly, even if you're a people person. This is a place of austerity. The identity that people historically took on was a monastic one, where you have a rule of life. You say these prayers in the morning and these at noon and these at night. You fast, you discipline yourself in many ways. Most of it has to do with solitude and silence. And you can't hear the word of God if you have a podcast going in your head. Present company excluded, of course. Or you can't hear if you have, Prokofiev going in your earphones or whatever you listen to. Those are great things, but you need to separate some time out every day for silence, to quiet your mind, quiet your heart. You can hear the trail and you can hear the traffic and the bird song. And this is where the poetry comes in, Camino. It's hard for people who surround themselves with noise all day. People who come home from work and turn the TV on, and it just goes in the background all the time. Or you just don't know how to be quiet. And there's something very sad because you never have any free time for your soul and your heart. And when you walk silently for hours, it's one of the things I love about being on the Meseta. You do maintenance on your soul in the silence, and your soul loves this. You need this. Your soul down inside you that you crush all your stuff. You ignore that for later. Wait till you get to therapy and then you'll deal with it. This stuff comes out. It bubbles up to the surface. And you can open it up to the light and see that it's not nearly as scary as you thought. Or maybe I do need therapy, but you cry and you laugh out loud and you act like a lunatic sometimes and dancing around in the fields. But this is a place for soul repair. But you have to let yourself be alone and you have to let yourself be quiet. It will break you open and heal you if you let it. But if this happens in silence, you have to let yourself be alone. You'll have other people around you to bounce it off of often, but it won't work unless you let yourself be quiet. And you can get addicted to it. I'm a junkie for silence. It's one of the reasons I live here. But the fourth commandment is very closely related. Unplug thyself is the fourth commandment. Mobile devices and social media and electronic toys, they're distractions from the silence and from the people you need to be talking to. They waste your time and they steal your focus. This is ugly and sad for people who love their toys, but you're doing important work here. And the news feeds every morning are full of loathing and fear and things that just upset your mind. There's nothing you can do about them. And also there's the people who are compelled to promote themselves constantly. You can pick up a piece of trash along the Camino and do the right thing, but you really don't have to make a TikTok video of it and broadcast. I know there's a lot of really useful pilgrim apps. You do need to call your grandma now and then. I'm saying you should scrap your telephone, and you need to call ahead sometimes and find things out. But this is not the place for, ongoing streaming video connection to home. You left home to leave that stuff behind. That's why you came here, for quietness and aloneness. Check in at home, but then turn the thing off. The world can turn without you, and it will. And it will continue even after you're gone. So be here. Be here on the pilgrimage. Be here. Don't be some other place. Because that's what electronic media does to you. It takes you away from now. And you came here to be present. So be present. Thus saith the commandment.
I think it's worth reiterating where you started with this, that if you're approaching the Camino as a holiday, then, whatever, do what you want. But if you want this to be a transformative experience, if you want this to be a pilgrimage, it's essential to detach yourself, to disconnect, to give yourself that distance, because otherwise you're never fully going to break away from home.
Yeah, leave home. And especially the people who feel they have to broadcast themselves. The world can live without you. If they love you, they will come back. It's very difficult for me sometimes dealing with some of these folks, but we're having dinner. Put that away. No, I don't want to be filmed when I'm saying my prayers. Thank you.
I have been seeing more people talking about how they have been on the Camino at a dinner and people are filming, and then the video just shows up online the next day. There's no question of consent. There's no consideration of the other people around them. Like, it genuinely seems to be becoming quite invasive.
Well, this is another problem I have with drones.
Yeah.
I do not like them. And boy, if I had a big old ball bat, yeah, I think they're invasive. And the Spanish privacy laws are very strict. We tell our hospitaleros this. You cannot take photos especially indoors, of other pilgrims and post them on the internet without written permission, especially of young people under 18. You can be fined hugely for that. So, watch your step, be careful. The law says no. But anyway, back to the commandments.
Yes, number 5.
Number 5, it's a little more vague, is carry your own burdens. When you see a mess, you clean it up. You be the adult in the room. Mind your business and your possessions. Don't be afraid of sleeping in a bunk bed or staying in a donativo place. Fundamentally, the pilgrim adjusts to the road. He doesn't ask the road to adjust to him. This is what this all boils down to. Complicated bookings and baggage services lock you into a place and time each day. But if you let go of that, you have all your things on your back with you, and you don't have to be somewhere. You can dilly-dally. You can go to the museum. You can have another glass of wine at lunch. You're not afraid. And you always find a place to sleep. You always find a place to sleep. Always. Guaranteed. I've been doing pilgrimage since 1993. I've always had a place to sleep. Not always Instagrammable, not always where I'd want to sleep. And I didn't always sleep very well, but always had a place.
There are pilgrims who will say that having the schedule, having their bag shipped ahead, those two structural things allow them to actually be free of concern, restraint. That allows them to be present in the moment because those thoughts aren't on their mind. What do you make of that response?
Well, if that makes you feel good, then you go for it. But I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's not a good thing because clearly it works for them. But this other way is much older and it's been working for an awfully long time. And you're not locked into anything.
Mhm.
You can change your mind and go to the beach. You can abandon all that stuff and just roll. And I'm just a freedom-loving, road-tripping fool, I guess. Anyway, do you want to go to the sixth commandment?
Let's go to number 6.
Is ask for help. And you offer help. Be compassionate. Know your limits. But when you find yourself in trouble, don't feel you have to be Mr. Individualistic Marlboro Man and take care of it for yourself. Because this is a moving community. You don't know these people's names, but you've seen them around. Even the people in the villages, there's not that many baddies around here. This is a marvelously low crime part of the world. If you need help, you can get help just about anywhere. You can ask just about anybody to help you, and they will. They'll move the world for you. But that also means you're part of the community. So you see someone on the road with their backpack off and over. You stop and you say, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" It's part of your duty as a pilgrim to help your fellow pilgrims. And don't just walk by and assume that someone else will. Remember the parables in the Bible about the poor man laying in the ditch and the high priest walked right past him. Oh, well, I'll dirty my hands. Remember, these are your brothers and sisters. These are the people you got to take care of. And Camino's the same way. If you see a mess on the Camino, you clean it up. It's talking to you. It's your job. And it's not just people. It's the Camino itself. It's also the hospitaleros taking care of you. Lend a hand. Step up. If you see someone in pain, just put a hand on their shoulder. Ask them, "Are you okay?" Or "I hear you." Or show some care and some compassion. Step outside yourself and learn a few phrases of Korean. Learn how to say hello. Make some friends with people. A lot of Americans and North Americans will like wall themselves off in one little group, and the Koreans are over here and the French are over here, and they don't mix up a lot. They used to be a lot more communal back in the day, and now they all are very much a language group. You can be awkward. It's all right. Invite lonely-looking people to come and sit with you at dinner. You're going to find some really good company. You find out that that person who looks lonely and kind of losery is an opera singer or something amazing. So there's a really, really cool people walking. You'd never suspect. So be compassionate, ask for help, give help. It's what we're about.
I have been guilty as charged of being Mr. Individualistic and, growing up in America, it's hard to escape that notion that like you should be able to take care of yourself, not be a burden, not be an imposition.
Mhm.
And it took me a while to realize that part of the power of asking for help is that is one of the greatest ways to build a connection with other people, to actually become embedded in community. And it's a powerful thing to be able to offer help. There are a lot of people on the Camino who are there specifically with that mission of being of service to pilgrims. And
Mhm.
so, in some ways, asking for help in those cases is empowering, enabling them to be the version of themselves that they want to be. So, it's not a selfish thing to ask for help. Often, it proves to be quite unselfish because it does put those people in that position that they're seeking.
Yeah. Also, you can put people in the position who aren't seeking it, but suddenly they have to, it's up to them to help you. And they can discover a part of themselves. The gift of giving is so rich that,
Yeah.
yeah, I can be me, I can be a Camino angel. Yeah, you too. Because the Camino is us. That's the main point of this whole speech is it's not magic, it's us. Anyway, the seventh commandment is do not be afraid to suffer. This is very unpopular in many circles. People tell me that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And it's like, no. The wisdom of the elders, suffering and how you deal with it is part of becoming a fully formed adult. Because suffering is going to happen to you. Pain and suffering. If pain happens, suffering is kind of your response to it. Without suffering, you don't transform. Transformation happens either from great suffering or great love. Two ways to be transformed. No pain, no glory. This is not a popular idea, but it's heavy-duty truth. Suffering is built into our literature, our song, our circle of life. And it's the theology of the cross that we find in the cruceros that are all along the Camino. The portrayal of the crucifixion and the mother holding her son in her arms, the suffering and the giving and the resurrection, and the whole ethos of the path itself. You crucify your ego, you die to yourself, you rise again to serve others. The pilgrims of old knew this truth. This was a religious path, and they knew too that all of this will pass away. None of this is eternal. Things will get better. The pain goes away eventually, somehow, or help comes, and you wake up in the morning and you feel better. But don't be afraid to suffer. It's going to happen. I tell everybody on the Camino that one day you're going to think, what the hell am I doing here? What was I thinking? It takes you to the end of yourself. So don't be afraid to be there. And don't be afraid to just gut on through it without tearing up your knees.
One of the things that struck me over the years was the learning that sacrifice in the original Latin means to make sacred. And that has long stuck with me, that there is something intensely powerful about suffering, sacrifice. I take students on pilgrimage, and sometimes people ask, like, do you need to do team building beforehand? Do you need to take some initiative in building cohesion within the group? And my view is always the same. All they need to do is suffer together. And that experience will galvanize them, because there is something about that act of suffering that brings us together as people, as we endure, as we overcome, as we reflect on that experience together. There's just great power in it.
Yes, and as you accompany other people in their suffering, or
Yes.
you help to solve their problems in their suffering. A transformed life, the end of the Camino, when you look back, you see, am I transformed? Are you afraid of sacrifice? A transformed life is not afraid to give up something, because the rewards are so great on the other side. You're talking gospel there, man. My favorite, I think, is the eighth commandment.
Okay.
Because I'm an aesthetic. Live the beauty. A pilgrim is minimalist and doesn't use many resources, and he sleeps wherever he can find a bed, but he finds his joy in simple, beautiful things, and the Camino is alive with beauty. And one of the great things about walking a long, long way is your eyes are open, your ears and your senses are alive. You hear the spectacular bird song, and you hear the harmony of the trucks going past and the horns in the distance of the trains. There's joy under the tree with the dappled light coming down. Also, this man-made artworks, architectural jewels, just made of mud and stone, all along the Camino, for people who aren't in a hurry. If you're in a hurry, you're not going to see this stuff. You sit still outside a church or inside a church and let yourself settle in, and you look up and you'll see some angels. There's angels up there. Or if you let yourself sing, even if you're not a good singer. This is something in my little church. It's great. We have an acoustic there that's unparalleled. And you can sing Mary Had a Little Lamb, and you hear 500 years of singing voices come down from the rafters and join you. It's called angel voices. So yeah, these amazing aesthetic experiences that are all around you, all up and down the Camino, not just in churches, but all different places. But also, if you're a spiritual person, you go find a holy place and you let yourself settle down and pray. And you'll feel the prayers of 900 years of people praying with you. And it's profound. It's spectacular. Anyway, and just the food, the animals, the company, the funny jokes, the running jokes that you have with your friends, the wonders of lying down in a bunk after 30 kilometers and relaxing. Does anything feel better than that? So it's just an aesthetic experience, unparalleled. The church bells and the cowbells and the scraps of radio music coming from the tractors. It's just, you hear it because you're slowed down. And you realize how much you're loved when you see the beauty of the world. And you can pass that love to the next person, which just multiplies it. So what's not to like? and that's a wonderful commandment, an easy one. Yeah. The ninth commandment is keep that kindness moving. Being a pilgrim makes you very kind if you're doing it, right? You got to give it back. And kindness doesn't get bottled up in you. You see the need around you. Your eyes don't just get open to birdsong and tractor music. You'll see the people around you, the hospitaleras, or the people running the cafe in the morning. They make it happen, and they're putting their lives down to make your trip happen. And they are sacrificing so you can do this thing. So it's important that you give something back to them, not just money for your coffee, but a thank you. Or if they are running behind, or you're the last one out in the morning, you can help them sweep up. You can take the trash out. It won't kill you. You might like it. And there's some really cool people running these places. And if you take your time, if you're not in a hurry, you can sit and chat with them for a minute and really hear some cool stories and meet some wonderful people. And that's one of the ways I became a hospitalero and met some really legendary folks. I don't like to wake up too fast, and I like to drink coffee, and I'll buy a coffee for the hospital. So that's how you do that. And they love the kindness, and they are kindness embodied. So this is a rail that the whole Camino runs on, that people who are in a hurry don't realize. These are spectacular people. They're there for you. Take a little minute and talk to them. Really worth knowing and seeing. The other kindness is for your fellow people. I say the biggest test for a transformed pilgrim, for a real pilgrim. People say, what's a real pilgrim? Here, I'll tell you what a real pilgrim is. At the end of the day, the albergue is all full, and the one last person comes straggling in, limping, and obviously white-faced with exhaustion. And they go dragging their stuff through the albergue looking for that last bunk that's in the upper place up there. The real pilgrim is the one that stands up and says, here, take my lower bunk. Take my lower. Transform life. Gold star. That's a pilgrim. That's love. And that's a life transform. So that is the ninth commandment, is making that kindness continue moving and making it real in the albergue. You don't have to Instagram it either. I gave up my bunk for this poor old guy. Anyway, the 10th commandment gets more kind of heavy theological on you. Realize the miracle that is grace. The Camino is a gift to the people of the world. It runs on a variety of love called grace. And grace translates to unmerited favor. Something nice that doesn't have a price tag attached to it. Something for nothing. It's a gift. You didn't have to earn it. You didn't have to pay for it. Grace flies in the face of consumerism and capitalism. Grace has nothing to do with money. You put in the time and effort and follow the directions and give up control, and your life is transformed. It's that easy. It costs you nothing, except it kind of costs you everything. But that's what grace is, and that's what the Camino runs on, is unmerited favor. That's why so often when you're running, trying to make the Camino run like I've been doing for a while, you have these huge collisions between capitalism and grace, because fundamentally, this is a place of grace, but it's being pimped mercilessly in the big world. So there's inevitably a lot of conflicts. Anyway, the big warning that comes with all these 10 commandments is do not commit idolatry. This is not a commandment, but this is something important. And I didn't say adultery. Okay,
Yes.
make sure. Don't mistake the Camino for God. The Camino is a hiking trail. It's really important to the world, but it's not magic. It's not the magic kingdom. It will not provide for you. The Camino does not provide. The provision that you experience is people who are full of grace, showing you how much God loves you. The Camino is not a property or a feeling or a vibe or a spirit. The Camino is us. It's me and it's you and it's the pilgrims. And it's the people who live here, the people who run these places. We provide for each other. We care. We leave the banana on the post next to the turning so someone else can have one. We care and we do the work. It's not magic. It's us. So my final commandment is take your transformed self and go home with it and transform home, transform your world. Be the pilgrim that you've become. Be self-contained and simple and mature and connected to the God that underpins the whole world and not just the Camino. Anyway, I wound up the whole speech with a little story that goes with this little icon. Everybody's seen this image at least once or twice. This is called the Rublev Trinity. It's a Russian icon. It goes back to a story from Exodus in the Bible, a very early pilgrimage story. Way back before Exodus, Abraham and Sarah, a pair of really early pilgrims, were called to leave home and set out in some unknown country. And one day they set up their tent under a big oak tree, the mighty oak of the Mambre. And they sat there and quietly and settled in and had a rest. And along came three men. Abraham and Sarah welcomed them into the tent, sat them down, gave them some water to wash up, made them some dinner, made them comfortable. At the end of the dinner, the visitors blessed them and went on their way. The big question, and who were those three guys? End of the story was, those guys were God. So we honor this image at our house, the breaking of the bread, the wine and the blessing, love and grace and hospitality. It's not limited to the Camino at all. It's wherever we are, because the Camino lives in us. The love and the grace is in us. It travels with us, and the supply of grace and love is endless. The more you give away, the more you have. So it's a wonderful thing to be involved with. It's very demanding, but wherever you go as a pilgrim, you're home too. And you can open your home, welcome others, because you are grace. You just have to let the light shine. And there you go. And there's the speech. There's your easy 10 commandments.
The room couldn't have been more silent after you made the comments about the Camino provides, because it's one of those truisms that is thrown around all of the time. And to see it challenged like that, and challenged in such a clear way, one that immediately makes sense, that we are sort of removing agency from ourselves as humans and imposing it on this amorphous idea of the Camino. There's a hazard in that. And so I do think it's incredibly instructive and important for us to think about it in terms of the collective humanity at work on the trail.
Mm-hmm. And grace is nothing without people making it happen, because it's just an idea. If we don't make it work, it's just another church word. But it's like provision doesn't happen unless someone says, "Oh, I don't need this banana. Someone else can use it." So yeah, it's us.
You mentioned that you are stepping back from some of the work that you've done that involved coordinating a lot of the hospitaleros for Fix. Is it difficult to take that step back after all of those years of service, or has it been a relief?
It's a relief, but the hard part is I found two very gifted people to step in and take over what I was doing. It's kind of flattering because it takes two people to do what I was doing. I'm still on the board at Fix, which is another whole other can of worms. One of the great challenges of my life is to be on that board. But the pilgrim stuff, no, I don't miss it. It's because really coordinating volunteers, as much as I love these people and respect them, this is not what I'm cut out to do. I'm an introvert. I'm not a people person. And I love my silence and my solitude. And it's mostly for health reasons I'm stepping back. My health is not great these days, but my wheels were coming off.
Hmm.
And I've also found some really good people to help me run the Ditch Pigs program in the fall. The Dutch Association is helping me out to step in with that. And they have some wonderful ideas and some super motivated people. So we'll see some changes with the Ditch Pigs. Just a few other things I've just not so involved in, but otherwise I'm much more involved with my parish, my local church. We're opening the church every day here in Martinos in the morning, so the pilgrims can come in. And every Wednesday we have a pilgrim mass in Ladigos, so the passing pilgrims can have a mass there. Just chilling a lot more, staying at home and relaxing a lot more, doing a bit more writing. So we'll see what comes of all that.
Let's wrap up with this, if you don't mind, one big picture question. I can't resist just because you are always in the middle of things, or you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening on the Camino. What are the biggest topics of conversation among Camino leaders and rabble rousers today as we sit here in the middle of 2025?
Oh dear. Well, my angle of seeing things is very much on the hospitalero side, and that's only one of several. With Fix, we are involved in fighting two big environmental threats to the Camino right now, a big copper mine in Galicia and a huge cellulose mill. And they're both being proposed to be built right along the last 200 kilometers of the Camino. And it looks like the junta has pretty much in the pocket of the corporation. So it's scary, sad. The other things is we're short on hospitaleros, not just us, the Federation, a lot of other volunteer groups. It's becoming harder to staff than nonprofit places. And there are a few very cynical plans afoot to put volunteers into places in Galicia that are run by a corporation. And it's kind of quietly not telling people it's semi-legal or semi-ethical. I warn all volunteers, be very sure that who you're volunteering for is a nonprofit. There's some not very kosher things happening. So buyer beware. Your labor is very valuable. Don't give it away to people who are making money off of you. Or they have money, they should be paying some wages.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's my big issue right now. There's other issues going on. Just a lot of it's just politics and ego and people battling it out for ego. But those are the big things that concern me the most.
All of the far less pleasant stuff than the topic of the Ten Commandments and the ways that we can get the most out of this pilgrimage experience thanks to the many who have walked before us.
Yes, yes, but that's up to us individually. When you start getting into more policy level things, we are also responsible for helping these things work. I hear Americans and Canadians say, "Oh, that's a Spanish problem. Let the Spanish handle it." No, this Camino is all of ours. And when somebody's threatening the Camino, we all need to speak up. This is world heritage. It's not just Spanish. So that's a cop out. It doesn't fly with me. So step right up, pilgrims. Let's get active.
Thank you, Rebekah. Thank you for all of your work in support of the Camino and pilgrims over the years and for talking with me today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You ask such great questions.
Where's the line between prudent advice and judgmental gatekeeping? I think about that a lot in Camino discussions, where people can become very defensive very quickly in the face of differing opinions and conflicting suggestions. Sometimes, of course, those opinions and suggestions are offered in a distinctly judgmental and abrasive fashion, and I mean, in those cases, fair enough. But those pilgrim versus tourist discussions also sting a lot, I think, because many of us, at our core, want to be good pilgrims, however we individually define it. If you care about something, you want to do it well. That's natural. When you hear advice that conflicts with how you approach pilgrimage, it's easy to receive that as implicit criticism that you're doing it wrong. So let me be the first to confess. I have broken some of Rebekah's commandments. And you know what? I'll probably continue to do so. On these super long, high solitude walks that I've been doing recently, I mean, there is a limit to how much time I need to spend rattling around in my own head. So thank goodness for audiobooks. And similarly, it's far more customary on these routes in Italy and France to let your hosts know a few days in advance that you're coming. And I recognized years ago that the absolute worst hour of my day was the hour spent wandering around town trying to find a bed when my first choice was full. Having said that, I have recognized as well that the hardest days to write about are the ones where I left the headphones in for most of the walk. When I lose that time to just let my brain whir along untroubled, I also emerge with much less to say about the experience. And I also can see how releasing myself fully to the Camino and allowing the accommodations to take care of themselves each day might inspire me to become a more trusting person. So both of those things can be true, that I'm opting out of certain pieces of advice, but I recognize their likely value. It's like meditation. I've read the science. I know it can be powerful. I'm not doing it. There's still value in hearing that advice, though, and maybe shifting the needle 5 degrees in that direction. To pull the headphones out an hour sooner, to set limits on the news doom scrolling, to leave some days unbooked, or at least wait a little longer to book. You know, maybe one shouldn't approach thou shalt not commit adultery as a suggestion to apply in moderation, but I think many of Rebekah's commandments can be. And hey, this is something I care about, so I always want to learn how to do it a little better, how to try to get a little more from the experience, how to make it that transformative pilgrimage it can be. And that's why one of the most common elements of this podcast is seeking out advice from veteran pilgrims and researchers alike about what they have identified as best practices. And even then, acknowledging all of that, I still have to consciously tamp down that defensive voice in the back of my mind when I hear that advice offered that doesn't align with how I quite consciously and deliberately prefer to walk. Good Lord, we humans, and I placed myself firmly in the middle of this, are frustrating creatures. That's all for this episode. Thanks again to Rebekah Scott. You can find her books, A Furnace Full of God and The Moorish Whore, on Amazon, and you can visit her online at peaceableprojects.org. All episodes of the Camino podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can reach me at CaminoPodcast@gmail.com and through the Camino Podcast Facebook page. And you can support the pod on Patreon at patreon.com/Dave Whitson. Back again next week.